The steroid for property that will just not go away. How it's affecting rentals and sales. We're going to talk about it right now. Stay tuned. Billy Drury, the old man stuck in a young man's body. How are you?
Good property doctor Mark Novak. Property doctor Mark Novak's 30 years of experience is very insightful for conversations like this. We have reached, I think, a point in the market where it's not just supply and demand driving prices anymore. It is the cost to create supply. And we're going to talk about that this morning. We're going to talk about the farmers of Australian property, which are the everyday mum and dad, landlord and investor. And we're going to talk about the builders on the front line, what they're telling us.
Well, I think if you put it into farming aspects, you sort of, you lay down the crops, you nurture the crops, you grow the crops. There's stuff there's devastation that happens in farms from weather. Property's very similar. It's got a lot of synergies to a farmer. And this morning off air, we were talking about the harsh reality of a builder and what a builder has to go through these days. Building's a tough business. It's a real tough business.
Yeah, I guess the word investor generally refers to someone putting $1 down trying to make $1. But like a landlord is a property provider. It's much more than just an investment. You're putting a roof over someone's head. And I think that's the same for a farmer. Like you're feeding someone. It's not just about the money. So we're going to bring to you a bit of an insight as to what we're hearing in the market. And you framed it up really well off air. Not all of this is reported in the newspapers or the media because it doesn't really read the same as the punchy headlines you get.
Well, look, I actually saw something genius yesterday on Donald Trump. Love him or hate him. But his latest thing I saw he was doing was water. You know how there's the when you turn your tap on, your water gets regulated so it only does half strength of what it would normally be, and it saves water. Yeah.
Right.
So in Australia, we've made it mandatory to put these water saving devices out. America have done the same thing. So they had plastic ones they had in taps, and people kept taking them out. So then they started welding the regulators into the taps. So people started using less water, saving water. And he's turned around and said, look, when I wash my hair, it used to take like 7 minutes, and now it takes like 15 minutes. How stupid. So it's like, I'm using more water, I'm wasting water because it's taking time. He goes, get rid of that law. So that won't happen in Australia, where all of this compliance that builders have been shrouded in to supply more properties to people in the market for rental, for sale, that compliance is not going to be wound back. And that compliance is what builders, developers and everyone are getting suffocated by at the moment. Suffocated.
And you might even ask, what sort of compliance are you talking about? It is new building codes, it's basics, sustainability targets, and it's just a massive layer of red tape. And all of that red tape adds months and thousands of dollars to projects. Literally.
Have a laugh at it. Look at the lollipop people on the street with the signs that are getting paid what they're getting paid, and that compared to 10, 15 years ago. I'm just looking at someone on the street now where there's 7 guys in high heels looking in the same direction, doing nothing. It's one of those things where, you have a laugh and think that's so counterproductive. It's not productive at all. They have like the machine on the side of the road that opens and closes automatically, but then they have six lollipop people standing around having a chat. We laugh at this being counterproductive, but it's just the way of life now.
Yeah, I mean, these are these are sort of costs that builders are factoring in before the shovel even hits the dirt, before they're even doing anything.
Yep, you're paying for it. Why not?
And so, developers getting stuck where they can't get projects up and running, it creates this window where property values continue to grow, and that is like the steroid hit that we're talking about this morning. Like material prices 20 to 30% up in recent years, labor shortages, there's a lack of trades where people are paying premium rates just to get the builders on site, and then the delays equal time, the time equals money, the holding costs is what's pushing things through the roof.
Look, it's my job, and I speak to these. We're calling them this morning farmers. If you've just tuned in, these developers and people supplying property, sometimes landlords, so you can call these guys as well. But we are selling a lot of sites all of the times on the Northern Beaches. The Northern Beaches has 100,000 properties, and there has a good appetite for developers to come in and develop. I speak to these guys all day, every day. All of them, every single one of them, are just going, we're going to sit here, do nothing. We're okay, but we're going to sit here and do nothing because it's too hard. They're talking about class 2 being too hard. So the only way, if this compliance stays, which it will, the only way is when it gets to an economical part, and that's when property prices grow, where it becomes so profitable that they go, you know what, we can do this now. But there's going to be a gap. Could be 1 year, could be 5 years before it actually becomes economical to follow all these compliance guidelines to build stuff.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because in the meantime, the people that are hit the hardest here are first-home buyers, entry-level price points shift, people upsizing, and renters. Because there's a low supply. And relatively speaking, investors are chasing, a yield.
Yes.
So
where we're going with this, Billy Bob? So the bottom line, guys and girls, if you're trying to work out what's happening with property, the way to do it is step back and look at the fundamentals of what goes behind this. We would suggest finance. Yes, that's one thing that comes into buying properties. Grants and savings for first home buyers. Yes, that's another thing that comes into property because it kicks through all price ranges. You may think a first home buyer doesn't affect your price range in a house. It does because it knocks through price ranges when they start buying. But there's finance, but there's construction, but there's jobs, and there's immigration. There's all of these fundamentals, the overall health of the economy. So there's all of these things, but something that's easy to ignore is compliance, and compliance is what we're talking about today in building.
Yeah, so I think the forecast of property growth, it's there. It's right in the sweet spot now where there's certainly strong demand for supply. Stock levels have come down. Just to bring it back to DY and how this matters for Northern Beaches, stock levels have come down last 2 weeks. Month of April has actually been quite a diminishing stock level, and that's there's still a surplus of buyers. That's how.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yep. And I think at the end of the day, strata, which is units, is going to be from what I'm hearing is so much harder to build than a house. So they actually call it class 2. So when you're building, you've got class 1 and you've got class 2. Class 2 is generally, cluster homes. Class 1 is like standalone homes. Class 2 is so much harder to build than class 1. So I think you'll see a lot less units being built. And we are going to choose another topic over the next week, which I want everyone to watch, which is land tax, which is the biggest financial crippler in Australia at the moment for tenants.
For tenants, not owners.
For tenants. Okay. We'll talk about this.
Are you nominating a day, or are you going to leave everyone hanging?
Hey?
Are you nominating a day? We're talking about it, or are you going to leave everyone hanging?
Tomorrow. Have we got a guest on tomorrow?
No, we're talking about it tomorrow.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about the dirty words, land tax.
Okay. There you go.
Have a good day.
See you later.
Thanks, Bill. Cheers, everyone. Have a great day.